What's up, boys and girls? This is Spit Logic, and there are times when I'm not making beats per se. I'm not on my MPC-1 or on my SP4 4 Mark II. There are times, and I would say increasingly so more times than not, when I am just on my MicroKorg. I am just playing with the keys, I'm playing with the sounds, and I'm just trying to make and craft new instruments. In this video, I'm going to take you through some of the steps of what I do to take something from just a simple sound wave and to create a landscape, or more of an ambient landscape, by using the MicroKorg. The first thing that we want to do is we want to initialize the program. We want to bring it back to original factory settings. So whatever program you have in right now, you have some options to save the program, but if you want to start from scratch, you hold down that shift button and then you push program number 3, and you'll see that INI, which stands for initialize. You see right here that number 3 button is blinking, waiting for you to push it again, and once you push it again, it has now reset to its basic state. Now, going into your programming, and when you want to start programming, you have a few different waveforms between each of the different oscillators. For oscillator 1, you have the option of a saw, square, triangle, sine, vox, and this digital envelope generator is essentially a library of about 64 different sounds that you can use. So moving on to oscillator number 2, of course you have similar options but not the same ones. You have the saw, the square, the triangle, and those are the only ones that you have. For the purposes of this, we're going to go with the triangle and have that accompanying oscillator 1, which is the saw. Off the back, what I do is I go into the mixer, because by default only oscillator 1's volume is turned up, and using the mixer to turn the volume of oscillator 2 up. So you can hear as I turn knob 2, you can hear a difference as that triangle comes in, and even similarly, turning that saw down, you hear the sound accompanying it. And from the mixer, I'm going to go straight to the envelope, the amp envelope generator. And the difference between amp and amp envelope generator, or amp EG, is the same difference between the filter and the filter EG, or envelope generator. And what that is that your amp is going to affect the waveform in totality as a whole, whereas your amp EG, that envelope generator, is going to affect the waveform throughout time as time persists. The first thing that I want to change on my amp EG is going to be the attack. So I like my attack pretty high. And you'll see as it goes up, takes a while for that volume to go from 0 to come back up to its full potential. For this, I want that attack to go pretty high. Let's just go up to 99. That's fine. The second, third, and fourth ones also have a significant effect. Your decay, you have your sustain, and then you have your release on the particular waveform. For decay, it is as your waveform comes to the top, it will go back down to a rate of sustainment. And this knob right here controls how long it maintains its height, the height of the sound wave, before it goes back down to a sustainable part of the sound wave. So for here, we want to keep it around the 40s. We don't want it to heighten too much. And then with the sustainment, we'll keep that at 127. And then for the release, by default, the release is sitting at 0. I do want that release pretty high up. I'm going to put it around 99, close to 100. So the difference between the release, once I let go of that key, no more sound persists. If I increase that release, once I let go, there's still sound left over. Now this envelope generator reset right here, it is going to control how the particular envelope generator that you have for the particular waveform if it resets as each key gets pushed, or does it cycle through and does it continue on even though you push other keys? For the sake of here, we'll just keep it on for sustainment purposes. The next thing that I typically do, I want to go down to my second knob, my second edit select, and I want to go to the mod effects. Now here you have a couple of options. It's going to be your flanger, your ensemble, and then your phaser. This is going to add a little bit more girth, a little bit more meat to your sound wave. And you have your other knobs, your other controls here. This is going to control the rate at which that effect is going to affect the waveform, and this is going to control the intensity of that particular effect on the waveform. So if we have it, let's say at 81, and we're going to go with an ensemble, you press that button, you press the keys down, and as you increase the intensity, you see how intense it is, and then as you increase the speed, so for this, I want to keep that intensity pretty high, maybe about 114, but I don't like the rate at which it's going. So we're going to bring that down about 45-ish. And you can even see how the other effects are affected by those particular settings. Got your flanger right there, and then your phaser right there. But we're going to stay with the ensemble. The next thing I want to do is I do want to set up my filter envelope generator as well. So in the same way that the amp generator dealt with the volume, the amount of volume that you hear, the decibels of the particular waveform, your filter EG is going to deal with the frequency, or deal with filtering the between highs, lows, and your mids of that particular waveform. This is dealing with the entirety of the waveform. This is affecting it over time. So with my filter EG, I don't do too much modification on here. Really, the only thing that I do change on my filter EG, that key track, I turn that key track off and just allow it to process no matter when I am pushing keys going forward. But you can make a couple of different modifications to it, to the release, to the sustain of it. I like to keep that sustain pretty high, and I'm not going to really touch any of the other ones. Maybe the attack, bring that up just a little bit, but again, I don't do too much with the filter EG. Then I'm going to go from the filter EG to the actual filter. This is probably one of the most important settings that you're going to have when you're transferring from just a sound wave to a soundscape specifically. So really, you have a couple of options that are going to be filtered by the type of frequency. This is going to be your high frequency, your mid frequency, and these are your low. You have two different low frequency options. For the purposes here, we're going to go with 24 low, and then on the filter, let's bring that filter down. For right now, we'll keep it mid 70s, high 80s. And then with the resonance, let's bring that resonance kind of far down to about 14. Bring that to 14. This right here, your filter EG intensity, this is going to apply that filter EG modifications to the current filter that you have it. It's typically at 0, and with this one in particular, what you have, which a couple of settings you have the ability to do a positive or a negative on the intensity of it. Negative intensity doesn't take away from the intensity, it actually kind of inverses it, or does a 180 flip on those particular settings for you. So as we listen to the intensity, or we take away, And since we turned that filter key track off, this is not going to really apply or have an effect on those keys. One thing I forgot to mention is dealing with Oscillator 2, you also have what is called the oscillator mod. This is essentially going to be how your Oscillator 2 its relationship with Oscillator 1 based on the type of modification that you make on it. If I go to Oscillator 2 and I go to knob number 2 where it says Oscillator mod, I have a couple of options here. It can either stay off, which is its original configuration. You have the ring mod, you have a synchronization mod, and then you have a combination, the ring and the synchronization mod. And we'll keep it at the ring and the sync mod. So before we get into the patches, let's go ahead and go down to our LFOs and let's set our LFOs up. So going into your LFO 1, you have a few options here for the different sound waves. You have your saw, your square, and your triangle. This one, the sample and hold, this is kind of a randomized sound wave to use with your LFO. So on knob number 2, you have your key sync option, and you have a few options. If it's off, then that LFO is not going to be affected by the keys that are played. If you have it based on the timbre, then the timbre is going to, the LFO is going to be affected by the state by which you are pressing keys and when no keys are pressed and going back to pressing keys. That is going to affect how that LFO works. If you have it on the vocal portion of it, then it will continue its phasing whether the keys are pressed or not, and not be reset by the absence of keys being pressed and then going back to pressing keys. So this third knob here is about the tempo. If you want to do a tempo sync, we're going to keep it off, and then this is going to be the rate or the speed of that particular LFO. For LFO 1, let's go ahead and keep it at about 60, and then we'll just do a little demonstration on the LFO effects. So let's go ahead and get started with our first patch. And essentially the way that patches work is that you have a source element that is routed to another element, and then your third knob is going to determine the effect or the intensity that that element has on the overall waveform. So for this one, we have LFO 1, which we already have established, and then it starts off with pitch, but for the purposes of this one, let's go with the amp. So essentially what is happening right now is that with that triangle waveform that we have for LFO 1, what's going to happen is that the amp or the volume is going to rise and it's going to fall in the form of the triangle. So if I hold it down, and then as also another note for that knob 3, you have the ability to do a positive or a negative effect or intensity on this particular patch. So we'll listen to the effect. And you can hear that rise and fall of that sound. If we go to our LFO 1, we can change the speed by which it goes. So we can go very slow, or very fast. So going into LFO 2, let's go ahead and program LFO 2 for right now. And since we had LFO 1 at such a quick rate, and you do have a couple of different options here, the saw, your square, and then sine instead of a triangle, and then of course your sample and hold. We're going to go with the sine wave for LFO 2. Let's keep both of these off, the key track as well as the tempo sync off, and we'll do the LFO 2 a little bit lower, maybe in the teens, 15, 14. Let's start off with 60 before we go into the next patch. So in patch 2 for LFO 2, which is already kind of set by default, we'll go from pitch and we'll go into cut, which is going to be your cutoff, your frequency cutoff, or the filter for your particular waveform. So we'll press it. So let's go back into our LFO2 based on that, and then let's see if we can bring it all the way up, or even bringing it down. Let's bring it down really slow. Let's want to really slow. Moving on to patch 3, we're going to do something a little bit different. On patch 3, we'll go to the frequency envelope generator, and then we're going to patch that into our cut, into our filter. So you see it doesn't have much of an effect on it going on the positive because of the LFO2 cut. But if we go into the negatives, you see it does have an effect. We also have the option of doing a delay, adding an echo to this. And for your echo, you have the option of what type of echo you want to do. You have just a straight delay. You have your crossing delay, which is kind of crossing between the two links. And then you have your left-right, or kind of a pan effect for your delay. We're going to keep it with the left and right. This is going to determine if you want your tempo sync on and off. I'm going to keep it off. This is going to be your intensity, and this is going to be the rate at which your delay is going to occur. The lower the number, the faster your delay is, and then the higher the number, the more far apart or more spread or slower the delay is. So let's bring that intensity up. I like that intensity to about 100, and we can just determine and the higher we go, the slower that delay. Now going back up to the filter portion, so I do like to use the current sound that I have as kind of a baseline. If I have this particular sound on here from the filter portion, I like to make a couple of more modifications to kind of smooth things out, to make it a little bit more ambient sounding. So from here, let's go down to somewhere below 60. We'll keep the resonance where that is. Let's keep the EG intensity, bring that pretty low. And there you pretty much have it. This MicroKorg, as old as it is, how long this has been in production, and how little has changed with that MicroKorg, it continues to amaze me of all of the things and possibilities that come with this digital synth. It's very interesting when I am trying to create or craft a sound that I have in my head by using the MicroKorg, and at the same time, it's very rewarding when you get even just close to making the sound that you wanted to make. I think with the MicroKorg, as old as it is and as simple as it can be, there is really just a mountain of possibilities when you're dealing with patches and when you're dealing with any sort of synthesizer. When it comes to using synthesizers, do most of you use the synthesizers that are digital, that are on your DAWs? Do you have a particular piece of gear that you use for your synthesizer sounds? Or do you simply rely on certain plugins, certain patches that are pre-made, and do you build them from there? As always, I thank you for the view and I thank you for the listen. And until next time, peace.